The following program is brought to you by Fanbags Cornhole, Chicago's official supplier of professional cornhole boards and bags. Choose from any of their officially licensed designs or have my boy Brian design a custom set using anything from a selfie to your company's logo. Visit www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS to get 10% off your entire order. That's www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS to get 10% off. Step up your game with Fanbags Cornhole.
It's Zach Edey with Purdue men's basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands post-game show. I am your host, Kraig Bowers Jr. Alongside me, as always, is Kraig Bowers and Joe Jackson on a sad national championship post-game show. But at the same time, keep your heads up, Boilers Nation. You have a lot to be proud of in this team and this program and this head coach and the greatest player in program history, Zach Edey, who gave it his all in 37 points tonight. Chris R in the chat, ever grateful, ever true, 100%. Kraig had some good words to, end the season, with a tweet he put out there saying the same thing. And it's not how we wanted the season to end, but at the same time, this team accomplished a lot of things that you as Boiler fans should be very proud of. And so my message would be to anybody that's in West Lafayette, make sure you give this team a warm welcome when they return home to West Lafayette. That this team has had this program and this fan base's back, and I think this is a moment where you need to have their back and show up to the airport, and when they land, give them the proper greeting that they deserve, because they've raised the bar of expectation with this team. They've had some very special moments. They've done things and achieved things that no team, no player, no head coach has done in a very long time or ever here for the Purdue Boilermakers. And so while I'm sure it's bittersweet tonight, I think that you got to carry a little perspective and then tip your cap to the UConn Huskies. They're a hell of a team, two-time back-to-back national champions for a reason. And they showed Purdue what needs to be done to get over the national championship hump. So be it. So those are my opening words, but it's been a special season, and let's not lose sight of that. But we'll break down the whys of how it didn't go Purdue's way here tonight. So Joe, I'll kick it over to you for your instant reaction.
Oops.
Nope. $5. Yeah. Hey, yeah. $5 right out the gate. I love it.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, this loss does not take away from what Purdue has done this season at all. It should not. The fact that Purdue got to this point is incredible. And yes, this is what they were supposed to do. This is what they expected of themselves. This is what they thought was going to happen, and they thought they were going to win it. And a lot of us did, and they had a chance. There's also a time where you just run into a better team. This is the first time all season that they've just flat out run into a better team. UConn is elite, and they showed it today. Is there things Purdue could have done to give themselves a better chance to win? 100%. And they could have pulled this out, but they didn't. And I still don't think that should take away anything from what this group has done. Going from, you have the backcourt freshman duo last year, Braden and Fletch emerging into sophomores, and Braden especially taking that leap as a top 5-10 point guard in the country. Zach Edey following up last season with this season. Like, he was insane last year, and he was better this year. That is really hard to do in itself too, and just everybody's kind of mental fortitude to be able to overcome the last year's, and the players said of the last year's failures, to come back and be able to do this. The Purdue, this is Purdue's 5th loss, and so the other 4, though, it felt like the weight of the world, right? When there was a loss, when you have that much pressure each game, you have a large percentage of like just the nationwide fan base rooting against you, hating on you. And they were able to absorb it and go on this run and provide an insanely fun season. We're going to look back. It's, we don't have to do it today, maybe, and just because of what happened, but we're going to look back in even a couple weeks and be like, man, this was a fun season. And that's what I'm going to always remember.
Yeah, 100%. It was a fun season, as Kraig's efforting a little technical difficulties. And when he comes in, he's always, a guy that really understands how to set the table on a game like this and a night like this, and has that bigger picture perspective, having been around the program for a long time. But for anybody that thinks, oh well, what else is new, they blew it. Purdue didn't blow this game. At the end of the day, like you said, Joe, are there things that they could have done better to stay in the fight? Yes, but that's pretty much the end of it. Like, had they played a little better, it would have been a good game that they still could have lost. Obviously won, but they weren't going to blow out UConn by any means. UConn's a great basketball team, and you got to keep up with them. They're the national champions, and now 2-time national champions for a reason. And ultimately, their length caused a lot of problems for Purdue to get shots, because people are like, oh, just, even me at halftime, shoot more threes. Well, they weren't doubling the post, and they were allowing Zach got 25 shots up today. And that was by design for UConn. They were allowing Zach to do what he did, but make sure the shooters are kept at bay. And it didn't help that Lance Jones got into some foul trouble fairly quickly, and he's somebody that's kind of a spark plug for this team. And so that, I think, also hurt. So if Kraig's ready to go, he's welcome to give his opening thoughts and instant reaction here to this game.
Yeah, my headphones were messing up. They're like stuck on full blast. So you were coming through to me just like screaming. But I'm going to do my best to get through this. I can't even shut them off right now and turn them back on. Nothing's working. But yeah,
Sounds I think a real delight to hear my voice, but even louder.
I think obviously just when you're looking at this season as a whole, I thought Painter painted that picture really well in the answer that he gave to you in there. And it's disappointing. It hurts when you get this close and you don't pull it out, because at the end of the day, they were a whisper away from it in terms of just coming up one game short. The game itself wasn't a whisper away from pulling it out, but you come up one game short on the entire season. It hurts, no doubt. But I think you have to look back on this season just with good memories of everything that they accomplished. It's further than any Purdue's team has come since 1969. That on its own is a major achievement. Winningest team in terms of a single season of any team in Purdue history. Obviously, Zach cemented his legacy as 2-time National Player of the Year and record breaker in many, many categories for Purdue, and also setting records just from a national scale as well in many different areas. So I think you have to take it away as a positive, and we have to view it that way because it was a really, really successful season. I think the players and coaches will look back on this season as being really successful, one that just came up short. But it's a journey that I enjoyed all the way through from start to finish. Wish the outcome would have been a little bit different here, but I think Joe and I when we did the pregame breakdown, you guys might have been able to hear a little bit different sound coming out of our voice, just in terms of our level of concern of the things, challenges that UConn could present for Purdue today. And those challenges ended up coming true. Just too much skill, too much athleticism from this particular team, and being able to just guard Edey one-on-one and still make things somewhat difficult, and just staying home with all the guards, not being able to rebound. UConn was just too much. They were the better team. I think if you play this game 10 times, UConn probably pulls it out 7 or 8 out of those 10 times. If I'm being honest, I think they're just the better team, and Purdue clearly cemented themselves as the second best team in the country, and that's an amazing, amazing achievement.
Yeah, and UConn just they're just good. I've said it all season, or not all season. I said it kind of leading into this tournament. It's just like UConn is good. And this was, Bragg's every game. This really, except this one. Every game though, he's come up to me because Bragg's is he's a nervous wreck for these games. For pretty much all 6 of these games, and it's all in fun. But he come up to me, he's like, Joe, how do you feel? And every previous 5 games, I was like, if Purdue plays Purdue ball, they win. That wasn't the feeling that I had going to this one. It definitely was you have to play a little bit better than UConn. And it didn't happen. And yes, there's going to be so many what ifs, and nobody's going to think about those harder than Painter and Edey and Braden Smith, and you can go down the line. But, it's how it goes. Sometimes you run into a little bit of a buzzsaw, and it happens.
Yeah. Because it wasn't just their length in terms of keeping Purdue's 3-point shooters at bay. What did they hit? 2 threes on the night, took only 5 threes overall as a team. They went 2 for 5, right?
I think 1 for, you talking about Purdue? I think they went 1 for 7.
1 for 7. Okay. Well, and that only illuminates the point even more with their length. But beyond the 3-pointers, like Kraig said, with the rebounding, the loose balls, the 50-50 balls, there was a few broken plays in the first half that led to buckets for UConn, and that's because their length, they were able to recover, or, the one where Camden Heidi came up behind and poked the ball loose, they were able to get it, boom, get the play underneath. They got a rebound, an offensive rebound, kick out, bang, 3. Those are the things Purdue is used to a lot of times getting, and tonight they found a team that had more length to them, and that was the reason, in a large way, why Purdue couldn't go on runs. And then I think beyond it, and Joe, I think you'll be able to speak to this more, Purdue wants you to take mid-range. They want to force you into the middle of the lane and try to get those shots up. Well, UConn's got a lot of guys that are good at making those shots, including Cam Spencer, who is one of my biggest concerns going into this game. And they've got a lot of other talented players on this team, but Cam Spencer, time and again, all these guys continue to get in the middle of play and made some really tough shots, going right at Zach Edey, going right into the teeth of the defense. Again, length and athleticism. So they're a load to handle. There's no question about it.
Yeah, and I almost immediately go to rebounds and free throws differentials really often as soon as we start post-game shows, because Purdue almost always has the advantage in those 2 particular areas. And there's a lot of times that Purdue plays teams that have advantages in terms of athleticism or in terms of speed, quickness over Purdue. And Purdue counters that by just getting way more chances and getting quick stops and not giving teams second chances, because they're going to out-rebound everybody. UConn out-rebounded Purdue from a total rebound standpoint. UConn had more offensive rebounds than Purdue. Somehow they still ended up 2 less in second chance points, but they got a bunch of second chance points. Purdue usually very limits that in nearly every game. And even with the free throw differential, UConn still ends up attempting more free throws. Nope, Purdue took 4 more free throws than UConn, but not near the normal spread that it would be. And again, that just all starts with the ability for UConn to guard Edey one-on-one. Edey ended up getting up to total points, 37 total points, but a lot of those came, not a lot, but he kind of made that jump from high 20s to high 30s after the lead was already at 15, after Their backup big man fouled out, and he was going up against the likes of Caravan down there. He kind of added another 8 or 10 points there right towards the end of the game. So being able to do that, just make it somewhat difficult on Zach, and then staying home with 3-point shooters, that allows them on the rebounding advantage and everything else as well.
Yeah, and when you're looking at like one of the big talking points will be, why didn't Purdue shoot more threes? And could they have maybe ran a few more plays to try to get shooters open? Maybe. That's UConn's defense. It's not just they did it this game. It's what they do every game. Klingon is elite at just eating up space, and he's so good at like in that drop coverage, right? Then against the pick and roll, the defender in Klingon, or if it's Edey's case, right, you keep the ball handler and the roller in front. Klingon can essentially almost just guard both at the same time. He can kind of like poke himself out there to be like, hey, you really don't want to shoot that, do you? But then he's also like, hey, I kind of am also back here. You don't really want to throw this lob. And what that allows is quite literally UConn does not have to help off at all. When you go into pick and roll and you get downhill, the advantage comes from because you are forcing the big into you as a ball handler, and you're forcing a weak side rotation, usually from the corner. They don't have to do that because Klingon just stays there and he eats it all up. And so now it's okay. We can just stay at home on 3-point shooters. On top of that, you stay one-on-one against Edey, and Edey had that insane start to the game. But then he cools off a little bit, and like Kraig said, he still gets his. Some of it came kind of closer to garbage time type, but it's like, what are you? It's I don't have an answer on what you're supposed to do other than if you want to shoot more threes, you're jacking up bad threes. And if that's the answer, then okay, sure. But if you're looking for good shots, like the good shots, we're throwing it into Edey and letting him go to work. That's just where the best shots were going to be coming from this game.
Well,
yeah,
and you saw it. Well, I was just going to say real quick, you saw it on the one play where they tried to design an inbounds play off a jump ball where they tried to spring Mason Gillis for a three, and UConn shut it down, and they ended up, Mason had to pump fake and try to sidestep, and then he got blocked at the shot clock. And I think that was a perfect example of a moment where they tried to scheme a three open and just couldn't get it. It's because UConn is that good.
Yeah, no doubt. And this kind of goes back to the thing, that you'll hear a little talking heads talk about needing an NBA winger guard. And when they're saying NBA winger guard, they're talking about in this current draft class to be able to win a national championship. And really that boils down to a game like this where if you're not going to create wide open looks for your 3-point shooters off of kickouts, you got to have some guards that can create their own shots. And Braden kind of did, coming off that pick and roll, the one that he hit, kind of creates that one himself. But there's honestly, that's why Miles got more run in this game, because Painter was looking for Miles can just rise up and shoot over people at 6'4". He really elevates when he takes that shot. And I'm positive that's why Miles got more run in this game, just because he was looking for somebody to be able to rise up one-on-one athletically and be able to take that shot on a quick hitter, on a quick look. And it just makes things really difficult for Purdue. I don't think that argument holds true if we don't run into UConn, right? If we don't run into UConn that has a cling, and I think Purdue's perfectly capable of winning the NBA championship this year without a 2024 NBA guard wing / prospect. But when you run into UConn with Klingon down low, and they can do what they do in terms of staying home from that point on. Painter talked about the fact that he knew Purdue was going to have to get a lead to force UConn to change what they do defensively. Because he didn't think they were going to be able to create outside shots for this team unless they could force UConn to switch their defense into a different scheme, force them to double a little bit, force them to help, force them to dig down a little bit so that Edey could kick out and find open shooters. And the fact that they couldn't get rebounds, he said you can't get that lead if you're not getting rebounds, you're not getting stops. So without being able to do that, they never forced UConn to change. UConn just stayed home the whole time, and you kind of saw tonight. Purdue struggled when they had to try to maybe create their own shot. We saw Fletch try to get to the rim a few times tonight. That just didn't work out against this team that has a lot more athleticism, a lot more size and length.
Joe?
Yeah, Kraig nailed a lot of that there. He really did. And it's just, when you're down against this team, you got to keep trying stuff, and it's usually just not going to work. It was kind of when you have two heavyweight teams like this, it's who flinches first, and Purdue was kind of the team that had to flinch first, and it just, you aren't going to get caught up from there, like, not against this UConn team. Yeah, like, I mean, I
think the other observation I had was, with about 12 minutes left, it became abundantly clear that Purdue needed to speed it up, and then they also started to full court press, which they never do. So, and they've been playing slow pretty much most of the tournament, maybe not all, but certainly against Tennessee and maybe Gonzaga. I don't know, maybe not. It's been a long couple weeks, but like, to me, how did you guys feel about, because it's almost like talk about how Purdue puts teams in binds. It was almost a no-win situation for Purdue, because if you do speed it up with UConn, that's how they go on runs, and so, but at the same time, like, what other solution could they have had? Like, to me, that was something that I felt like they needed to do. I guess that's where I want to start, is talking about maybe picking up the pace of play, because these last two games here in the Final Four, their lowest scoring outputs of the year. And then the second thing I want to talk about after that is the idea that they don't practice enough full court pressing to try to get back into a game. I know I'm all over the place here.
I would say you don't, like, the full court press thing is whole, just like, are you going to waste value? I don't want to say waste, but are you going to use valuable practice time for something you don't ever need? And that's kind of where that is. But then the speeding up is just like, yeah, like, they probably should have a little bit more, especially when you get down 12-15, and it's just like, you got to kind of go. That's probably the point where you just almost force shots, and you just kind of, like, maybe not like with 12 minutes, but with like 6 to 8 minutes left, where you just kind of got to force shots and just be able to hope that things go down. Hopefully you can get some stops. That was the other thing. There's a couple times they go, maybe they get 2 buckets in a row. They could never string stops in a row, though. Part of it was the offensive rebounding issues that they had, because UConn was just getting to everything. And part of it was Purdue's defense wasn't the best of staying attached to guards. And then also, hey, this UConn offense is insane in terms of just being able to, it is any little mistake, they take advantage. Okay, you want to overplay on this off-ball screen? We're just going to slip and cut to the rim. Okay, well, you're going to stay on that. Now we're going to run him off a pin-down screen, get him into the ball, reverse it back into a ball screen, hit the roller, kick out 3. Like, it is just constant. You have to play elite defense for 30 full seconds. One little slip up, and you're done. And Purdue had too many just little mistakes, and those added up to big things. Now you're down 15, and you have to do anything that you don't do normally to try to come back. And they probably should have forced a little bit more instead of maybe dumping it down to Edey with like 6 minutes left. But also, that's how you're getting points, and you hope you can string stops, and they just never, ever happened.
Let's go over a couple super chats here. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Please hit that like button here in our final post-game show of the season. It's been a hell of a fun year. No question about it. We appreciate the growth of, what we're doing here. What am I doing? Okay. So, like I said, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But shout out to Chris R here, $9.99 super chat. Thank you guys for what you do. Do you think that stretch out of half where the game was decided, UConn was allowed to play more physical and Purdue didn't match until it was too late?
There was very little from a officiating standpoint today that I was like, Lance Jones shouldn't have got called for a block the one time. He was definitely there. Somebody listening said Gene Steratore, when they brought him on, said the exact same thing. But outside of that, I didn't really think there was a whole lot in this particular game that was officiated poorly in any way, shape, or form, personally.
Yeah, UConn was just more physical. They just were, like, in a good sense for UConn. And that, I don't know. I was like, because I'm sitting like I can touch Kraig right now, and that's where that look was just like, I was like, being like a real human and like looking at you talk. And then I was just like, oh, I'm staring at you. This is a little weird. So my bad on that one. You hear him? Okay. I don't hear you.
So we're gonna go ahead and take over for Greg here for a second and go to the $49.99 super chat. Tom, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Certainly goes for a long way to help and support us and what we do. My thanks to you guys for your analysis and insightful support for our Boilers all season. How proud I am for our Boiler family that we may have this team effort to carry us into future years. And yeah, I think that's something. We'll do a look ahead at next season, a different show after everything's had a couple of weeks to settle in, or a month or two to settle in. But the future's bright, and there are some stars coming in this class. You're going to see Miles Colvin take a real big jump from this season to next season. Cam Heide gave you a glimpse of what he can do when he made the entire crowd come out of their seats, regardless of what team they were here to cheer for. Definitely a bright future ahead. So looking forward to that as well.
We don't hear you. I hear you because I'm sitting across the table from you, but
Yes.
the people there, I do hear you now.
Now you hear me. Thank you, Tom Bonner, for the nice words. And yeah, we will do a recap show, soon. I think, just like we always do a season recap show. Maybe we'll try to bring on somebody connected with the team to try to get their perspective on it. And then throughout the summer, we'll try to continue to check in with you guys and talk about the future of this team and everything. So the content won't stop. It obviously will slow down here a little bit as we go into our summer vacation and start to, get to swimming pools and cold drinks and getting nice tans. So, but we appreciate everybody's support. Why don't we give a shout out to Autograph before we, round second here on this show. We appreciate the sponsorship here with Fan Bags and everybody, has been great. BJ Rule was great for us this year. All these guys, and then Autograph too. They came in on the backside of this season. So it's been a lot of fun to work with them. So let's give them a proper shout out on our final post-game show of the year.
Yeah, so Autograph, for anybody that doesn't know, it is the app where you can get all your Purdue content in one specific spot. It doesn't have to be just Purdue content. It can be really most colleges. They don't have all of them yet, but a lot of colleges that you kind of absorb their content anyways, but Purdue specifically, our podcast and just kind of everybody that you listen to and read their articles and all of that. One specific spot is completely free. Use code BITS on signing up. And then there's also leaderboards, so you get rewarded for different things like interacting with articles, podcasts, tweets, each other, and all of this is through the app. You can then use these kind of rewards to enter potential raffles. They've also had a ton of, throughout this postseason run of ticket drops where you could get tickets for $16 a piece, and just a really great app, really cool reward system too, and completely free. Use code BITS and just kind of reward yourself for doing the fan things that you already do. So it makes sense to do. It is on Apple and Android. We'll throw up the QR code that you can just scan. And like I said, completely free. Use code BITS, BITS. And we really do appreciate them kind of coming on later in the season and working with us.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of fun to work with them at Autograph this year. That was an amazing new app that we got to promote and use ourselves. And you guys saw a really cool deal with Fletcher Lawyer and a signed chair that you can purchase through Autograph, an NCAA tournament chair. I'm sure a lot of people will latch onto that, but really cool partnership with them. And just like Greg said, all the people that have supported us through advertising this year in terms of BJ Rule and Michelle Rainey as partner as well, Brokerage Brewing Company, Fan Bags, everybody that advertised with us. Thank you so much for that as well.
Yeah, and also shout out to our guys over at Carousel and Tail Greeter. Here in these last few days, we threw a couple, meet and greet parties, Boiler Nation parties at Carousel, which is in the entertainment district here in what they call Westgate, which is right by the stadium. And Um, the amount of fans that came out. I mean, we were all coming anyway, right? But at the same time, to come to an event that we organized, and the turnout was just absolutely unreal. The fire marshal came out today, which was a very funny part. They were just shutting it down. So, because the amount of Boiler fans that wanted to hang out and have fun for the party. So shout out to Scott from Carousel and Pat from Tail Greeter. It was a lot of fun working with them here in the last week, and shout out to all the fans, man. It's just been a great thing, and I hope when we leave here that we see some fans out that are holding their head up high. I know it's hard. It seemed like some of the players had that perspective. It's not easy, but at the same time, there's a lot to be proud of. The team has a lot to be proud of. The head coach has a lot to be proud of. The program has a lot to be proud of. The fans have a lot to be proud of. So this has been a fun year. Everybody keep their head up. Kanan Catchings is on his way next year. This program is going to just continue to shine. This is a great time to be a Purdue Boilermaker fan. Obviously, they have one more goal of all the goals they've accomplished this year. Still one more left, one more box to check. But I think that they're going to get there. I think they'll be back at some point. But as we know as Boiler fans, because the last time they got to this point was 1969, there's no guarantees. So they got to put their head down and get back to work. And one of the guys that I spoke with in the locker room that really just has one of these, eyes forward mentality was Kaufman-Renn. He wasn't really in the mood to talk about what they accomplished or what to be proud of. He wanted to talk about, no, this isn't good enough, and this is the price of being competitive. This is the price for winning, is that your standard is to win. And so his message was that this isn't good enough, and I want to be better next year. And so I can respect that too as a competitor. That's the sacrifice of champions, is that they're not satisfied with what maybe we as fans want to just take as solace or moral victories. The way you get to the top is the hunger and desire for more, for better. And, when you're thinking too much of yourself and gassing yourself up too much, that's when you get soft, as Kaufman-Renn said. So, he's already hungry to get back to it and try to get to this point next year and win a championship. So, there's two sides of every coin when it comes to competitiveness. We as fans can appreciate what's happened, but I think a lot of these players, Braden and Fletcher and Trey, I think these are the type of guys that are, going to use this as motivation.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's weird because there's so much I kind of want to say, but I also want to leave it for almost its own show of this future is coming. There is, it isn't just, and Kanan Catchings is obviously kind of the highlight of the group coming in, but it isn't just him. Jakari Harris is an absolute stud. I've heard very good things about Cox, and Jacobson has 7'3" dude that can move and shoot the ball. There is a lot of talent coming in, and there's a couple others I didn't name that also are talented. There's a lot of talent coming in. There's also Braden Smith's going to be a junior next year. This is Braden Smith's team. I don't think things like that can be over. Fletcher Lawyer is going to have a whole nother year, and he's going to be adjusted to new role. Miles Colvin has now a full year of experience under his belt and kind of being able to fit into the system. Camden Heide, we saw the flashes towards the end of the season. The dude can be an absolute stud, straight up a stud. This is a team that is going to come back, and I want to save it for more of a its own show. There's also just the reflection of this team, and I almost want to save that for our own show too, because there's just so much going player by player, and you go through the senior class of Zach Edey, and words can't even describe what he's meant to this team this season, the career he's had. I don't care what anybody says, he is a generational player, and we don't know when that another talent like that is going to be at Purdue, let alone college basketball. And then you also take his story, but then there's the Mason Gillis, and even Ethan Morton accepting his role, and you can go down the line through this. Lance Jones comes in as this fifth year and just shocks everybody and does it all with a smile on his face as he's going through all of his personal stuff. You can just go up and down this team, and it's just man, this is This was such a fun team to root for. This was such a fun team to be able to follow. And yeah, like there's little things that we could talk about probably from this game too, but my mind's just kind of swirling and just kind of trying to get all three of those concepts into one. And I don't know if I'm doing that well, but so I'm going to throw it to Kraig right now.
No, I think you wrapped it up really well. I don't want to look too far ahead. I think that's a standalone show, and I think we will kind of recap the entire season and this team in general further on. And we've kind of put it into perspective just in terms of what getting to this point means for this Purdue team. You saw how campus reacted just to make it to the championship game. And, Purdue players should take pride in that and how far they did come and what the journey was. They didn't win a national championship, but they were the national runner-ups, and they won a second Big Ten championship by multiple games. They won a Maui Invitational championship. A lot of accomplishments along the way.
Yeah, 100%. Two of the more weird things that happened during the game, at one point, a pen got thrown onto the court, maybe obviously accidentally. I don't know if you guys caught this, but I think it was in the first half. Well, in the first half, I guess I'm going to have to go back and watch the TV tape, but Purdue ended up turning the ball over, and they go to a TV timeout, and Braden points at half court and picks something up. I ended up finding out later on Twitter through Greg Doyle, and it was a pen from the coaching staff that must have flung out of his hand maybe as he was gesturing. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't see how the pen ended up out there, but it was out on the court during play action as Braden was taking the ball up the court. And as I said, on that possession, there was a turnover, and, Braden picked up the pen and put it in the ref's face. Like, what? Look at this shit. And UConn, I think, got a warning for it. And then the other thing that happened in the second half, I've never seen this before, but UConn lost a possession because Dan Hurley came out and shoved Cam Spencer to get him into position or something. I know we've seen a little bit of that with Chris Collins touching Fletcher Lawyer on the court, but Hurley is a character. I think that's the nicest way of putting it. But those were two things that you just don't see that much, and you saw them tonight in a championship game.
Yeah, it was weird. The pen comes out there, the Hurley thing stepping on the floor. And I don't know if he was warned. That might have been he was warned earlier also. I know he had been out there far, and it kind of comes back and happens again. It was really weird. There's nothing other to say than that. Hurley's a character. Hurley's a phenomenal coach also. I don't have too much to say.
Then I guess the other thing with Hurley that happened was him exchanging words with Zach Edey.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. And Zach was asked about that in the locker room, and he said that he was going to keep that between him and Hurley. So Zach wasn't going to spill the tea, but that was the other thing that I guess stood out in the game, with Hurley and the coaching staff and everything that's going on with their bench. And, never a dull moment, but, those were some of my observations from that standpoint. I don't know, like I said, it's hard, this is the end of the season. It's over. So, it almost as much as how much we value what you do, Joe, really breaking this down and how we go through each player, it almost feels kind of weird to do that because it's over now. We're not talking about the next game. We're not talking about adjustments that need to be made. Now it is about a pivot to what this team will look like 6 months from now, and that's so far away. So it's almost like, what do we do tonight? How do we finish the show? And I guess, one of the things that we have to talk about and really put more of a spotlight on is Zach Edey and what he's done for this program, this team, these fans, these alumni. I think the number one thing when it comes to Zach isn't just what his play was on the court. Joe's broke it down. Craig's talked about. We've dropped 37 again tonight. Yeah, they were essentially letting him, the last 10 minutes of the game, like, sure, drop it down to the post because we're not letting you get threes. But at the same time, drops 37 in the national championship game, willed this team to victory to get to the Final Four in the Elite Eight game, dropping 40 against Tennessee, maybe one of the greatest performances in Purdue men's basketball history. And so I guess we'd be remiss to not really talk a large segment here about the greatest, as Joe said, the greatest Purdue Boilermaker of all time. Mason Gillis also said that in the locker room. Trey Kaufman-Renn said it in the locker room that, all due respect to Glenn Robinson, but Zach Edey's the greatest Purdue Boilermaker of all time. So, and I think, like I said, beyond his play on the court, I think what, for me, when I think about Zach Edey, is his spirit, like what he did for the spirit of this program. Because, when I came here 8 years ago, this fan base has been through a lot. And the last few losses, the last few years to Fairleigh Dickinson and North Texas and St. Peter's, it really reached its breaking point for a lot of fans. And Zach Edey, I think, really turned the spirit of this program from what has been a very negative fan base in a lot of ways for rightful reasons, tough times. And I think now it's starting to turn where this fan base is starting to see a little more optimism and not gloom and doom walking into games, and there's more hope. I think Zach Edey provided a lot of hope for this program and lifted the bar of expectation and the standard for this team to, not just be happy to get to a Sweet 16 and beat Tennessee. It's about getting to the Final Four. And for them to accomplish that, for me, Zach Edey has done things much bigger than basketball for the program here for Purdue.
Yeah, and one of the things that Painter said in the press conference when they were asked about his legacy, well, first of all, they asked Edey, and he said that wasn't for him to decide. That was for people around Purdue to decide what his legacy was, and that one of the things that he really cared about is just that people say that he competed and they gave 100% all the time. And then in reference to Painter looking at him, he said, obviously, in terms of just everything that he's done statistically, the awards that he's won, the amount of games that he's helped this team win, he's up there in the conversation with the greats at Purdue, with the greats in college basketball, really. But that as importantly, Painter really admired how Zach did it, how he went about it, especially with all the negativity and backlash that he's gotten from the general public, for him to be humble, for him to keep his head up, not to get in the fray about the things that were being said. He was very proud of him for that. And, as proud of him for that as for everything that he accomplished on the court as well.
Yeah, and I think that's when we talk about Edey's legacy, I've said it, like he's the greatest Purdue men's basketball player of all time. And that's not trying to be disrespectful to the greats that came before. It's just, that's what I think of Edey. But it isn't all just him being so dominant on the floor. It's what he did kind of like off the floor and staying for fans every single game for 2 seasons at least. I can't really speak to prior. And sometimes like 2 hours staying for every single fan to sign. And it wasn't one game. It wasn't a one-off. He wasn't doing it for the cameras or anything like that. It was, no, this is what I do. I think he embraced the stardom, but also deflected it at the same time, if that makes any sense. He embraced like the responsibilities of it, of being a guy that everybody looks up to and understanding the spotlight's always on him and he has to do things the right way, but also being like, hey, like, we talked, he's a pretty laid back dude off the floor. Like there was never really any drama with him or anything like that. There was no, even when talking with everybody, it was never like, superstars get away with certain things, and he never really felt that way with Edey. Like he had to have this different set of rules to go about just basic life in the locker room and all that stuff. Like, you never heard anything like that. Obviously, two-time national player of the year is like, yes, there are the little things that come with it, and but even like Julie Edey, her just becoming like a fan favorite, and she embraced Purdue. Purdue embraced her. Both of them in general, just bringing such a smile to everybody. And there's just always things like that when we look back at Edey, yes, the 37 points in national championship, the 40 points to send Purdue to its first Final Four in 44 years, those absolutely should be talked about. And he didn't turn this program around because it was in a good spot before he came, but at the same time, he's propelled it to that next level. And there's a chance in a decade we look back and be like, oh yeah, that was like this. It's unreal. It's unreal to think about, like, we watched Edey for the last time in a Purdue uniform, but I'm glad we were able to do it for 4 years.
Yeah, and Drake Hobbs in the chat, saying the remarkable thing is remembering how he first came into Purdue and was supposed to redshirt, and he was, maybe what was he ranked in the 400s, and ends up being two-time national player of the year. So, I think that's the other part of this story is the development of where he came from to who he became. And watching him in the first half, that put back dunk over Klingon, where he just, just skied him. I mean, and then a couple of the blocks, and then him coming back down from the other end and pounding his chest. Like, there was a moment in the first half where you were just like, wow, this dude is the most big time player Purdue has ever had. And he was showing you why in the biggest moment. He put this team on his back. There's no question about it. But, at the end of the day, UConn just had too many answers to the, questions that Purdue tried to present to UConn. And so some of the pick and rolls, UConn executed perfectly, and they started to, do their best to make it hard on Zach in the second half.
Yeah, no doubt. And, I think there's a lot of similarities between the women's national championship and the men's. You have a singular national player of the year superstar on the Iowa team and on Purdue's team. They both have really good supporting cast around them, but they both do rely heavily on generation of points from their two national players of the years. In both of those games, you saw that national player of the year come out really, really hot, right? Caitlin Clark gets like 18 points in the first quarter. Zach Edey comes out and he's got like 14, 16 points, at the 12-minute mark or something like that, or 12 minutes into play, something like that. And then both of them, things slowed down a little bit from there because there's only so much you can do. You're going to tire out. You're going to wear down a little bit when you're getting relied on that much. And in both situations, they needed a little bit more from everybody else around them, even though they played with a ton of energy. They played with a ton of effort. I think it was just a matter of the supporting cast of UConn just being better. That's all it was tonight.
Yeah, 100%. It's frustrating because, their war of attrition that Purdue normally wins, had Purdue been able to shoot a little better or get more stops, I guess more importantly,
get more looks. I mean,
get more looks. Well, because you got
to get the open looks to shoot better,
right?
And then they Purdue'd us on a rebounding standpoint.
Yep.
To your point.
Right. So, but I guess what I was trying to say, if they could have tightened the margins, the war of attrition would have eventually gone in Purdue's favor because they did get both their bigs in foul trouble, but it ended up not becoming the factor it normally becomes in most Purdue games because Purdue was so far out of reach. So, that was the other end of it as well, where, they couldn't keep it close enough. And that's what UConn's done. That's what they've done 2 straight years. I think they've both years now on their route to winning 2 straight national championships. They've beaten every team right? 12 straight tournament wins by double digits. Is that correct? So you're talking about one of the more dominant tournament teams, one of the more dominant national champions ever. You know, I mean, this is a run these last 2 years that you don't see in my whole lifetime. So, yeah, I mean, UConn is the standard right now, but Purdue's scratching and clawing to get up there. And I think, like I said, we'll talk about next year's team. But I think one of the things I am looking forward to, because I hear a lot of people that don't follow the program as closely say, well, they're done now. We heard this when Travion was gone or Jaden Ivey left, and nobody knew what was coming with Zach Edey and
Carson Edwards.
Carson Edwards. Yeah,
Isaac
we've heard
Haas.
we've heard this over and over, and Purdue continues to reload and reinvent themselves. So I am looking forward to next year. It's been a great ride with Zach, but it will be fun to watch Painter and the team reinvent themselves and play a different type of way and try to be great at that, you know, and so show people that, because I think people have just gotten so used to Zach and the dominant force that he's been the last few years that they don't realize that there's a different style of play that Purdue is capable of. And I'm excited for Purdue to show the world that it isn't just they can do other things and they'll win a Big Ten. You can say it, mark it down right now. They're going to win the Big Ten next year. For anybody that thinks, oh, now it's our turn. No, it's not. Purdue's going to win the Big Ten next year. So enjoy that one, you know, for the rest of you Big Ten. If any of you Big Ten fans are reveling in this loss right now, and you think, oh, the Zach Edey era is over and Purdue's reign at the top is done. No, there'll be a top 10 team going into next year. They'll win the Big Ten next year, and Purdue will be making a run in March Madness once again next year.
It's the era of the transfer portal, so I'm going to hold off just a wee bit on making that proclamation, Kraig, myself, but I think they definitely will be up towards the top. I think you will see a completely reinvented, not completely reinvented. It's going to be a different offense. TKR is still going to be a dominant post presence, but I think you're going to see a lot of different things in terms of wing and guard play that are just different. And we saw that in 18-19. We don't have a Carson Edwards. There's nobody on this team that Painter's given a green light to shoot 27-footers. But it's going to be a different look. So just be ready for that. Be expecting that. We'll talk about that much later on. A couple more super chats here. Gregors.
Yep. Gary Basket. Appreciate you. He was out at Carousel. $20 super chat. Thanks for signing my flag, guys. No problem. He's got a sweet flag with a bunch of different fans and players and all these different that have signatures on it. And he asked us to put our John Hancock on there, and we appreciate Gary for coming out.
Gary, did you find your cards? I need you to answer me in the chat. I'm nervous whether or not you found your cards and whether or not you're going to be able to make it home. So,
he lost his wallet, huh?
Yeah, like his little case that carries all of his credit cards. So hopefully he ended up finding it there, but it was great to meet him. It was great to sign that flag. It was really, I know, Braggs, you're like a really big deal at CHGO and you get asked for your autograph all the time. But for Joe and I, that's still like people want our autograph. So that was cool. It was cool to meet him and do that. And a lot of the other people that we got to meet and sign stuff for, take pictures with, that was all really good. Tammy Wallen also gave $9.99, but then the message came through after that. So Greg.
Yeah. Tammy says, thanks for everything, guys. Appreciated everything you did. And hopefully next time we get here, Kraig can get a better hotel room. Yeah. That'd be nice. A shower that is more consistent.
Yeah, I'm not mad at Joe. I'm just mad that Joe ended up in a better situation with me for not necessarily any better planning than I did. But c'est la vie, such is life.
Yeah, such is life indeed.
That happens.
And I want to shout out my guy Matt Gregory, who's let me post up with him. He's a buddy of mine and been crashing at his place the last few nights, and I'll be crashing there tonight. And they've been a great host to me here, helping me afford all these crazy trips that we've been doing here the last few weeks. I've been all over the map, with the Super Bowl and the Combine for the NFL, and then 3 straight weekends of Detroit, in Indianapolis, Detroit, and then Arizona. I'm excited to spend the summer after the NFL draft is over with my family and swimming with my 5-year-old daughter, soon to be 6-year-old daughter, every day. And it's been a lot of fun. This ride has been a lot of fun. I wish Purdue was playing another 2 weekends in 2 other cities. This has been a great ride. And you guys have done a great job, as I've said a million times. But the turnout and all the different people that have come up to us is, to me, a testament to what you guys do. I built this a long time ago, and I had to kind of sit back today and kind of watch everybody kind of enjoying the time and take that in and understand what we're doing here and try to appreciate that moment. I'm always somebody that tries to do that and live in the moment and see what we've accomplished. And I'm very proud of what we've done. I'm very proud of both of you guys. You guys are superstars in Purdue coverage. And there's a lot of great dudes that cover Purdue basketball, Casey Bartley and Brian Newbert and Mike Carmen and everybody, Golden Black, like across the board, guys that have been here a long time. And they've embraced us, coming in as the new kids on the block, the wild childs that are throwing keggers at carousel. And, we're doing it a different way, or at least I am. And, but you two have a lot to be proud of. And I'll continue to say that to every single person I meet that thanks me when you guys aren't around. That's something I always make a point to do, because if it wasn't for you two, this show would not be where it is. And I have a lot to thank in that regard. So I'll continue to gas you guys up all day long, because you deserve it. But this is only the beginning of what we've built here. And it's going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to have fun. Obviously, Purdue getting to a national championship brought in a lot of new viewers, and we appreciate every single one of you this season jumping on board with us, new sponsors, all of it. It's really cool. And so I appreciate you guys, the viewers, everything you guys have done, whether it's hit the like button or subscribe to the channel or the super chats or meeting us up for the meetups. This only motivates the three of us to want more and do more for you guys. So we'll continue to try to grow at the pace that we're growing, and it's going to just continue to blow up. But that's right. We are the wild child, the fans in the stands media. We want to represent you people, because that's who we are. We're fans that have a large passion for this game and this team. So, thank you. I know we all kind of bring something different to the table here. And you just have to put up with my long rants like this one. So
let me jump in.
Yeah.
Because I also got some thank yous, right? And starts with you too. I'm considering this year one for me. I know last year I jumped in for like 2 months, but thanks. Last year I'm considering year 0. This is year 1. This is freezing. You guys probably can't hear me. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh, you can. Okay, cool. But
Yeah.
Starts with you two and Braggs. Kind of learning from you in terms of the media stuff and pushing me in different ways that I'm not used to. But then also everybody that listens, like I and we, but for me specifically, like I just covered the Final Four in a national championship game. That's crazy. And so that's because you guys, all tune in and watch and support us, and really, really do appreciate it. Don't take it for granted at all.
Yeah, and certainly also thank you to everybody that listens. First and foremost, thanks to Joe and to Greg for all that you guys do. Greg, the opportunity that you've given me, certainly been an amazing ride. There was a moment today. It was after the game, actually, when I was walking out a little bit downtrodden, and like 5 steps, I walked by Grant Hill, and then I got trapped trying to get out of the media, like how they force you up into the seats. I got trapped standing shoulder to shoulder with Bill Murray. And I'm like looking to my right, like I'm standing next to friggin' Bill Murray right now. Like, this is nuts. 2.5 years ago, we had like 30 people watching this show, and now we have a couple thousand every time we hop on, at least. So live, and then 5,000 or 6,000 more later. So just appreciate you all, appreciate the journey. Great that we have a great team and a great coach to follow and to report on. Without them, there wouldn't be much of a show at all. So certainly thanks to the people on the team and the coaches that give us their time for interviews, the former players that give us their time for interviews. Have loved every single which one of you guys that have brought on, all the Purdue staff, supporting staff in terms of the athletic director department, like Foreman, the Purdue creative people that work with us. You guys are all awesome. Certainly appreciate each and every one of you. And I am ready for my bed, Greg.
Yep.
All right. Well, that wraps things up for tonight. We'll be back. We'll have a season recap show as we do every year. Maybe bring on Bobby or, like I said, somebody connected to the program. Haven't asked Sasha to come on as a assistant coach. I'm hoping to have him come on here this offseason to talk about his experience first year as a assistant head coach. So some different interview ideas we have in mind. Maybe try to get one of the players come on after they have some time to unwind from the season. So we we're not going to let go of the rope completely, but obviously things will slow down. So just stay tuned for updates for upcoming shows. Our season recap show should come sooner rather than later, and then some of our other show ideas might take some time to facilitate. So like I said, just stay tuned for those updates. But again, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for tuning in to what has been just an unbelievably memorable season. Thank you for being a part of the ride here. And we'll be back, man. We're not going anywhere. This team's not going anywhere. So, thank you everyone once again. Enjoy your night. Keep your heads held high. Ever grateful, ever true, and boiler up for life.